Good evening, TGIS.
Good evening.
So yeah, the secret is out. I am a construction dispute lawyer, and part of my job is to tell stories. That's to tell stories to arbitration tribunals, to courts, to dispute adjudication boards. So in the next 4 to 6 minutes, I'm going to tell you my story. And I won't be giving much away by telling you at this point that it's not exactly like Netflix Suits. I love structure, and I particularly like chronological structure, so I'm going to take my story from the beginning to the end. I'm going to start in the first decade of my time on this planet, which is 0 to 10 years old. So it all starts in the very small Essex village of Ramsden Bell House, which is a quintessential English village with a picturesque church and, of course, a corner shop and a red telephone box. In a word, my childhood was blissful. I had a younger brother, older sister, and a dog that looked like Lassie, and I felt like at the time I had a million friends. But as the Greek philosopher Heraclitus says, the one constant is life is change. So my carefree childhood was not to last. So enter the second decade, 10 to 20. A decade of upheaval, some sadness, but most of all, excitement and adventure. Let's start with bad stuff. My parents divorced, which, if you're from the UK and in my generation, is a pretty common occurrence. And if you knew my parents, they definitely should have got divorced. There's no way those two people should have been married in the first place. They couldn't be more different. But ever the believer of fairness and equality, I didn't choose a side, and I love my parents to this day. At the same time, very unfortunately, my grandfather passed away, which is a very sad occurrence in my family, and I felt that he died far too young. I didn't have enough time to learn from him, but he's still with us today, and whenever I have something exciting coming up or some difficulty, I still turn to him for guidance, and it sometimes works. So in times of sadness, you need an outlet, and my outlet was work. I remember a time when my best friend had just got a laptop, and I really wanted a laptop, but my parents couldn't afford to buy me one, so I had to get a job. And the only job I could get at the time was a cleaner in a hotel. So, and let me into a secret. The worst thing about being a cleaner is not wiping up the sick from the carpet, or cleaning the toilets, or seeing things you'll never unsee in bedrooms. But it's waking up at the crack of dawn to start your shift. It almost killed me, but I persevered and I got my laptop in the end. Now, in the middle of this decade, an unlikely sporting event sort of took my fancy, which is skiing. And you might think, though, what is an Essex boy doing, which is the flattest county in the UK, doing skiing? Well, in Essex there's one hill, and on that hill they built a dry ski slope, and I went there every weekend, and I became a bit of a professional skier. It wasn't long before I was invited by the British ski squad to travel to France to learn to ski race internationally. So there I was at 15 with my laptop, and I went to the small village of Lezouche, which is in the shadow of Mont Blanc, and I professionally trained for slalom, Super G, and giant slalom. And yes, it was as awesome as you'd expect it to be. Living abroad certainly sparked something within me. Once I finished school, with straight A's of course, I moved to Russia, in St. Petersburg, to learn Russian and to develop my passion for Russian literature. It's fair to say I wasn't really the usual teenager. On my return, I moved to Nottingham, where I went to university to embark on my legal studies. It's the home of Robin Hood. And it's at university that straddles my second and third decade of this story. Now, desperate for more adventure, I turned my studies from law into Chinese law. And so I spent a year at the University of Hong Kong studying Chinese law. And as a bit of impromptu for you, my name in Chinese is Guo Daming Zhejiao. After university, I moved to the Big Smoke, which is London, where I started my legal career in my current firm. But before I started my job, I wanted one more adventure. So I moved to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and I lived there for 7 months. And Dios mío, it was a great 7 months, but there are certain things I can't talk about in this group, so I'll leave that till after the meeting. So here we are in my 4th decade, and I'm probably way into my 4th decade than I'd like to admit. So I moved to the UAE 3 years ago with grand ambitions to accelerate my career and to take advantage of the tax-free climate that we live in to save as much money as possible. So the first thing I did when I landed was to buy a Mustang. If you want some financial advice, come and see me. Last year was an incredibly successful year for me. I was promoted to senior associate, and I was a lead associate on 3 of the largest cases that we've had in the UAE. I had a hearing in Oman and 2 in London. I won 2 of the cases, and the 3rd one we don't talk about. And there you have it. So what stands before you, from cleaner to Mustang driving Dubai lawyer. Thank you very much.